let's get right into it. To set the stage, could each of you kind of give a 30-second synopsis of what you think the metaverse is and NFTs and the connection with blockchain, and just some definitions to ground everybody in this discussion? I'll start with you, Matt.
Sure. Yeah, I think that from a practical application as marketers, they all are connected because it is emerging technology. And with that, to get into the space may take a little more effort than in other worlds that we may operate in. But it also just takes a little more research. But with that comes a lot of potential. So I see it as an initial high wall, but after that, there's lots of potential to really engage with a new audience who's looking for new information. So from a practical standpoint, that's kind of how I see the potential in the space that we operate within, both in the metaverse world and also on the cryptocurrency side, really being connected by blockchain.
Yeah, blockchain is definitely a centralized point of this. Stephanie, how do you look at defining things like the metaverse and NFTs and decentralized finance? What language do you use?
You can kind of think about the metaverse as like a railroad. And so if the metaverse is the railroad, then the NFT is the train car. And so the NFTs are useful within this metaverse environment as stores of value. So the NFT can be a ticket to a concert held in the metaverse. And I use that in air quotes because I think we're going to dig into that a little bit later. And then the NFT could also be an agreement between you and another user that buys the NFT, so that every time the NFT is sold, you receive a royalty, or even maybe a dividend from that NFT if it's part of a larger collection of NFTs. And so I think that it's good for people to understand when you think conceptually of this blockchain ledger system, that there is some additional functionality that can come into play with blockchain. And that you can think about it as if this transaction happens on the blockchain, then another transaction can occur through what's called a smart contract. And so again, there's a lot of terminology around this, but really just think about it as it's a lot of transactions happening automatically with some additional security features. And since we as marketers and communicators work with brands that are transacting all the time, it's interesting to think about how to add some additional value to those transactions. And so, and long story short, that's how I think about it.
Yeah, it's an interesting metaphor, I think, with the railroads and the train itself. Joe, is that how you think about these terms as well? Is that a good analogy for kind of conceptualizing what we're going to be talking about today?
I'll use trains for any metaphor. Like, that sounds fantastic. I'm just a fan in general. I mean, yeah, when I talk to people about and audiences about metaverse, so I too try to like break it down, because to me it's really not. It's a word, okay? So, and it's caught up steam, right? And we're trying to wrap our arms around a lot of different things when we put this word into existence, right? Like, and it came from a sci-fi book, of course, but the metaverse is only our way of like trying to wrap our arms around this idea of a further integration of our real lives, of our physical lives and our digital lives, and especially over the pandemic. But trust me, this is not a pandemic, like because of the pandemic, this is all happening. Not true.
I've heard a lot of that today, so thank you for sparing us.
It's a fast forward button, sure, but it is not, this is all progressing the way it has been progressing. And it's pretty easy for me to understand this idea of as I spend more time on in my digital world, meaning, hi, everybody, we're on screens right now in front of an audience. Like, I'm spending more and more time in that digital world. Of course, I want to bring more cool things from my physical life into that digital space. I want it to feel more like my physical world, because there's some cool, nifty things that helps me communicate as a human being. It helps me connect. And then on vice versa, there's some really cool things about my digital life that I just wish I had inside of my physical world. Just go out in the, go out in the real world now. All the things of not getting exactly the products you want, or having to wait, or not getting the kind of experience that you're used to in your digital world. Don't you wish you could have those over? So it's really just this intersection and integration of those two lives. It is an interface, right? Like, if think of it as it's just the internet. We're not talking about something completely new. It sits on top of the internet, and it's a new interface to look on, to look at everything at, to experience the internet with. And yeah, it's not TikTok. It's not the next TikTok. It's much larger concept to that. But I'm geeked about it. Can't wait to talk more about it.
Hugh, do you think that it should be defined as the metaverse as that intersection between your digital and physical world, the way that Joe described as well, or do you think about it in different terms? I know, coming from more of the blockchain and crypto side, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, it's really hard to define, right? Because I think we know that, as everyone said on this call, more of our interactions and transactions in daily life is getting digitized. And as that gets digitized, we immerse ourselves into this digital world, or worlds. There could be more than one metaverse, right? To the point where, the vast majority of those human interactions and transactions occur within this digital world, but in which our lives and ourselves become so absorbed into it. I mean, almost living through VR. Kind of, not to go to Elon Musk, but he made the point, I think, on Joe Rogan's podcast, that like we're already kind of on the path to going like cyborg, right? Because we have our phones on us, and like we're constantly in this digital world now. But this is like the next step, I think, to immerse ourselves almost fully, right? And I think Joe mentioned a reference to, was it Snow Crash? It's this idea of, it's a dystopian novel, I think, from the 90s, where we all enter a metaverse, but in this case, it's like a metaverse in which there's like government control. It's like surveillance state, whatever, right? Which brings the next question is like, okay, so the metaverse is this digital universe that we are effectively like transplanting ourselves into as humans, but how is that world going to operate? Will that world be controlled by Facebook and Microsoft?